Manchester City have to sign Gianluigi Donnarumma in this transfer window. And I know there's a lot of people in the Manchester City fan base at the moment which disagree with that point of view and think that it's not necessary for us to sign Donnarumma. And I understand where people are coming from with the arguments that they're making. But in this video today, what I want to do is break down the reasons why I believe that it is absolutely necessary that Manchester City must go out and sign Donnarumma this transfer window. And as I said, I want to break down all of my thoughts kind of on Donnarumma and the reasons why I believe that Manchester City have to go out and sign him this window. And this is not a reactionary take that I'm making just because James Trafford had a poor game against Tottenham Hotspur on the weekend. I've been thinking this before the game on the weekend, and all the game on the weekend really did for me is reaffirm exactly what I was thinking coming into the game anyway. And I think the first thing that we should note in this video, and the biggest reason for me personally why I think Manchester City must go out and sign Donnarumma, is because Ederson is very likely to leave the club this window. And I personally believe that Ederson has already told the club and has already informed the club about his desire to leave. And the reason why I believe that is because about a week ago, we got the news coming out from Fabrizio Romano about Donnarumma, about the club getting in contact with Donnarumma, exploring the possibility of signing him. But an hour later, the news came out about Ederson to Galatasaray. And I don't think that those two things are a coincidence whatsoever. I think they're very much linked. And then after that, in the first game of the Premier League season against Wolverhampton Wanderers, Ederson was not in the squad. And Pep Guardiola gave the reasoning for why Ederson was not in the squad as he was ill. And obviously, that could be true. I'm not calling Pep Guardiola a liar. He may have well been ill for that game. And, you know, only really Pep Guardiola and the rest of the Manchester City team behind the scenes will know if that is true or not. And then for the second game, the thing that made it very obvious to me that Ederson wants to leave the club is that he was on the bench against Tottenham. And the reason why that made it so obvious to me that he wants to leave the club is because I believe an Ederson which wants to stay and play for Manchester City and is fully fit starts above James Trafford every single day of the week. And the reason why I believe that is because Pep Guardiola came out in the preseason and said Ederson is our #1 goalkeeper heading into the season. So why is Ederson our #1 goalkeeper heading into the season? And then he's not played the first 2 games of the season and also is on the bench for the second game of the season against Tottenham if he's our #1 and he's fully fit. That doesn't make sense. So all I can really read into this situation is that Ederson's head is not fully at Manchester City at the moment. He wants to join another club. That is obviously rumoured to be Galatasaray at the moment. And James Trafford started ahead of him in that game because James Trafford wants to play for the club and Ederson is out the door. And with the knowledge that Ederson wants to leave Manchester City this summer, that means that Manchester City must go and find a new goalkeeper regardless, because we need 3 goalkeepers. Obviously, we've got Bettinelli, we've got James Trafford, but on top of that as well, we've got Ortega who wants to leave the club. He's made that clear. And on top of that as well, Ederson now wants to leave the club. That means we need to bring in a new goalkeeper regardless. And for me personally, I don't think that James Trafford is good enough to play as the #1 for Manchester City. He's a very good young goalkeeper. He may well have an incredible future ahead of him. But at the moment, right now, for Manchester City to win Premier Leagues, to win Champions Leagues, to go for all of the top trophies, we cannot be relying on James Trafford as our #1 for the full season. It just can't be done. And in the Tottenham Hotspur game, I think we saw exactly why we can't rely on James Trafford in that #1 role. And I'm not saying that James Trafford doesn't have a future. I'm not saying he's not a good goalkeeper. But what I am saying is he lacks the experience. And we saw it in the Tottenham game, specifically for that second goal. The fact that he plays that ball to Nico Gonzalez with a player on his back closing him down inside his own penalty box, that's decision making. Whether he's good enough at playing out from the back or not, the decision-making to not clear the ball in that moment in time shows that he's still a very young and a very inexperienced goalkeeper. And so, with the knowledge that James Trafford is not good enough to be the #1 goalkeeper for Manchester City this season, and on top of that also knowing that Ederson is very likely to be out the door, if not is already out the door already, that leaves Manchester City with very little options, needing to get a #1 goalkeeper through the door in this transfer window. And the best current market opportunity is Gigi Donnarumma. It is that simple. Gigi Donnarumma was absolutely unstoppable for PSG last season in the Champions League. He was a massive reason why they won that title last season against Liverpool, against Aston Villa, against Arsenal. All 3 of those games, he was a big reason for why PSG were able to get through those knockout games. And he is a very good goalkeeper. He had an incredible season last season. He was the best goalkeeper in the world. Does he have his shortcomings? Absolutely. But is he the best goalkeeper currently on the market that Manchester City can buy? Yes. It's that simple. And the counter arguments that people will put to that is that James Trafford was signed this window for 40 million and he's the number 2 goalkeeper. And the whole idea behind signing James Trafford is that he progresses into that number 1 role. And I understand that. But Manchester City can't be a team that waits for players to get into the number 1 role. We need players who are going to be there ready right now. And at the moment, Gigi Donnarumma is ready right now to come in as the number 1 goalkeeper for Manchester City. So I think that regardless of whether James Trafford has the potential to get to that point, we can't think about stunting his growth. We can't think about, oh, well, how James Trafford going to feel about this. We are a club that want to win trophies. And if we want to win trophies, we need to act like a big club. And big clubs make hard decisions at times. That hard decision is bringing in a goalkeeper who, yes, he may well block James Trafford role to number 1 in the squad. However, is Gigi Donnarumma going to give us a better chance at winning Premier Leagues and Champions Leagues in the next couple of years? Yes, undoubtedly he is. And then the other argument that is currently getting put forward is that Donnarumma is not good enough to play for Manchester City because Pep Guardiola likes to play out from the back and Gigi Donnarumma is not that great with his feet. And I understand the argument because obviously he's just been dropped out of PSG because of Luis Enrique. He wants to play out from the back, a very similar manager to Pep Guardiola and his philosophy. And they've just gone and signed Chevalier to replace Donnarumma and practically kicked him out the door because he's not good enough playing out from the back. And I understand that point of view. However, one argument I will put forward against that is, first of all, Manchester City don't really have that many options in the market right now. We've only got a few, about just over a week before the transfer window closes, and we've got to get in a number 1 goalkeeper. That's not an easy thing to do. Gigi Donnarumma is an incredible market opportunity. But on top of that as well, Gigi Donnarumma has the experience over someone like James Trafford. James Trafford, in that moment against Tottenham on the weekend, played that ball out of inexperience. He didn't recognize that the ball was not on, he shouldn't play it, and he should just lob it forward. Donnarumma would be much more likely in that scenario to lob the ball forward and not try and play out from the back. I'm not saying he would have, but I'm saying he's got much more experience than someone like James Trafford, and he may make better decisions in moments like that than Trafford just because of his experience. But on top of that as well, you've also got to think of it from the club's perspective. This may well be a club signing. It may not be a Pep Guardiola signing because we don't know how much longer Pep Guardiola is truly going to be at Manchester City. He could be here for another season. He could be here for another 2 seasons, but I wouldn't put money on him being there much longer than that. So Manchester City might be looking at this from the long-term perspective of, well, we're going to sign a goalkeeper who's going to be our number 1 for the next 3 to 4 years. Gigi Donnarumma might outlast Pep. And therefore, it might be a club signing over a Pep Guardiola signing. And for me, that is the reason why I believe that Gigi Donnarumma should be signed by Manchester City this window. There are not many opportunities on the market other than Donnarumma at the moment. We can get him for a cut price. He's one of the best goalkeepers already in the world. Yes, of course, the cons are that he's not great at playing out from the back. That is one of the cons for sure. But you're getting him at a great price. You're getting one of the best goalkeepers in the world. And I just don't see a reason why Manchester City should not make this transfer happen before the end of deadline day, because we're put in an awkward position by the Edison situation and we need to react. And I think Gigi Donnarumma is a very good response and a very good reaction to the situation which Manchester City are currently in our goalkeeper position. And so that for me is the reasons why I believe Manchester City should and must sign Gigi Donnarumma in this transfer window. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys think that Manchester City should sign Donnarumma? If you don't, I want to hear who you think that Manchester City should sign as the number 1, because if you don't sign Donnarumma, you still have to sign a goalkeeper. So I want to hear what you guys think in the comments below. Hit the like button if you did enjoy the video, and make sure you subscribe if you did enjoy the content and you want to see more of it. But until the next one, I'll see you then. Manchester City should sign Donnarumma though. Peace.